Gideon Smith in the Dixie Damned in 1996 with my good friends Otis Hughes and Boo Duckworth. Boo and Otis had been in the Los Angeles based psychedelic hard rock band, the 90s grunge band. It's called Animal Bag. Animal Bag were a Polygram Records band, Mercury band on Stardog Records. Stardog was the same label as Mother Love Bone had created, and we always thought that was really cool. We were big Andrew Wood fans. So around between 96, right on the edge of 96, 97, I had worked 7 years in an occult bookstore, and I had quit music, and I had been really burned out on the business aspect of music business, the whole game of it. I said, this is not for me, this is not really what I want to be around and be part of, and I got very burned out. When you're younger and you first start to play in bands, you are very naive and idealistic, and then once you get involved in it, it can be very arduous journey. So I had a lot of fun, but then some bad experiences around just different bands and scenes and hanging out with people that were just too negative for me. So I sold my guitar and my equipment. I quit playing, and this was right around then. So I quit playing, and I had been working in the store. I was the bookman, and I was reading every day, studying very intensely. I'd studied Kung Fu with my Sifu, is Tianying Lung from Nanchuan, is a Southern Fist Kung Fu, and that was 92 to 96, and I had been studying Qigong and Kung Fu, and reading all the time, and really just changing my life in ways that I had wanted to embrace things other than music. And when I was younger, I had been in Japan and Indonesia, in France, and then in Quebec, Canada, Quebec, Montreal. So I experienced a lot of things that really shaped my life. They were very instrumental in my journey as a person. And then I always wanted to be in a band, so I tried band since I was a teenager. But we kind of stumbled around, and we had a lot of fun, but we really didn't get a lot done. So I played in speed metal, I played in heavy metal, hardcore, crossover, acoustic stuff, and I've been kind of a road crew guy with bands here and there a little bit that I liked. So I quit playing, and due to burnout from the scene, from the business, and I was working in the bookstore, and I love to read. I still read to this day, all kinds of things. I'm a big ancient history nut and positive thinking, philosophy, world cultures. I'm a very multicultural person from my heritage and my studies and experiences. So I really don't consider myself to limit anything that I study. I feel like if there's knowledge, inspiration, power, comfort, wisdom there, then you receive it. You'd be a fool not to take it and learn in life. So I ended up absorbing myself into different studies. I was doing yoga, and I was doing martial arts and archery, and having fun, obsessed with and still a huge love for biker culture, and I loved just basically living life, and music was still a big part of my heart, where I listened to it every day. I really loved reggae, and I loved metal and death metal, and I loved southern rock, but I loved old country, like outlaw country, Hank Sr. and Co. and Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash and everything. But and when it came to metal, I really was into Black Sabbath and Priest and Motorhead and stuff like that. More of like the old British metal. I can't really say I even listened to a lot of American metal. So, and then up in Quebec, it was like everybody worshiped Voivod. So it was like, those guys, it was like the coolest stuff. And the Cult, we love the Cult. I'm a big classic rock fan. And so I loved like the Doors and Zeppelin, Hendrix, Cream. What a lot of people refer to now as classic rock was really what I heard growing up, but it's also was our favorites. So I was working in the bookstore, doing my thing. I'd given up music, and I had friends in bands that would tell me their stuff, and I never really gave up wanting to play. But back somewhere inside the chambers of my heart, I still had my dream. I'd never made a CD. At the time, if you had a CD, you were either a big star or you had money, basically. And we never had CDs, or vinyl. We had like cassette demos of anything we ever did with a little paper cover we made at the copy shop. And so with my dream is I wanted to make a CD. I mean, it's like I just wanted to have one CD and we were going to, or whatever, and put it on the wall. I made a CD because back then if you had a CD, it was like throwing a rock at the moon, or getting a record deal or whatever. It was still in that age just before the internet really started to kick in. And I probably only even been on the internet a couple of times, and I had to have somebody explain to me what it was and set an email up for me and everything. And I thought this is really interesting. But the pre-internet era music age, and then out in the internet ever since. So it was like when I started doing my own stuff, I came in right when the internet was just starting to spread a little bit. I mean, it wasn't everybody's everywhere net like it is now. I got together with Boo and Otis, and they would come in the store and see me, and sometimes I would, I would go see them around town, and their band had broken up. They played in like I said, they had been in Animal Bag, and which was psychedelic, alternative, grunge, acoustic. They played everything. Massively underrated band. All four of those guys, so talented. And they had been through the whole major label thing and made a EP, 2 albums. And then I knew lots of people around Charlotte that played, but I had stopped playing. So then one day the fire came back. I still had the desire to play music, but I said I'm not going to give up on my dream. And so when the fire lit back, it came like a raging bonfire in a very furious manner. And I'm not really sure where it lit, but I had been absorbed in so many other things in my life for a long time that I got the music fire again, and was still always a creative person. But I said, I'm gonna do my own band. I'm gonna start my own rock band. For years, I had played in different bands with people and friends, and they say, like, we're gonna do this, we might do that, and I was never really my band. It was me with friends, and so people had always said, if you're gonna play again, just be Gideon. Like, do what you like, just be you. I had been up in New York City at one time with some friends in a punk band. They were into One Trip. I didn't really fit into it, but I wished them well, but it wasn't really my genre. And some of the people up there had kind of joked around about me at the time and said, oh, he's stuck in the 70s. You gotta change the way you look, you gotta cut your hair. And I had long ratty dreadlocks, and I'd been viciously criticized about my singing and my playing guitar, lyric writing, mannerisms, everything, where I was like, you're stuck in the 70s, nobody cares about what you do. And I'd say, well, my favorite bands are the Doors or the Cult or whatever, and they say, oh, those bands had their time, that shit's all over. And I'd be like, I couldn't relate at all what you're saying, because this is the life's blood of rock and roll, and stuff like Skinner and Sabbath, and you're not going to take the Doors out of my life because they're not in style this week. So I got a lot of grief from that, and said, I'm just going to keep being me. If you have that opinion, with these guys in New York at the time, and that's their valid opinion, but or there was at the time, was they say, they didn't care about the Allman Brothers and Black Sabbath. They just were following what was going on in the business, whereas they were businessmen. But with me, I said I'd rather go listen to my Sabbath record than try to be what's in style right now. So when I said I'm gonna play again, and it came back very strong, I will admit I had a gigantic chip on my shoulder, because I remembered all those years of playing before, and then I remembered people who told me, you're not good and nobody's gonna care, you're stuck in the 70s, and very, very, you're stuck in the 60s, or people say, hey, you're a fucking hippie or whatever, or you're a redneck, or it went so far as to make me say, I don't want to even be around any of this. These people are crazy. And it wasn't really that it damaged my perception as much as self-perception, as much as reinforced my sense of self-worth and identity, because I said, I'm going to be me. I'm just going to be me, and this is what I do. If I hang out and I'm reading, I'm studying the Buddha, and I'm studying, world religions, and I study things, and I was out pounding arrows and fucking, doing yoga, on Grassy Hill, where I was worshiping Harleys and stuff like that, and listening to Zep 4 all the time. Monkey was brand new, and that's what made me happy. And it's just kind of like at the time when people say, oh, you got a big beard, or you got all these tattoos, and what you doing down here, we don't like you. And if people were like that, I'd be like, well, then this is not where I'm supposed to be. And if you don't want to spend time with me, you miss a chance to make a good friend. If you don't want to be my friend, that's fine, but you're not gonna insult me personally. So when I got ready, time to play music again, two beautiful things happened. Three. One is that my inspiration came back. When the inspiration came back, it was like a bonfire that just expanded inside me. And I think I jumped up one day. I was sitting behind a counter with a book, and I jumped up and said, this is not going to happen. I'm not giving up my dream. I'm not going to let anybody tell me whether they like my sound or style, or that they give me, the overrule my natural instinct of anything I need to do to be true to myself. And so I said, this is me, what I'm doing. I spent my life being supportive to anybody that needed it. I'm the kind of guy that picks somebody up when they fall down. Other people, they want to kick somebody down when they're down. That's the difference, and that's the way I stay. And as long as I'm alive, I'm living it like a boss. When the inspiration came back, three beautiful things happened. First was inspiration. Second was I was surrounded by these very loving people who were like my tribe at the time, and they know who they are, and they believed in me and they loved me. And instead of sending negativity my way, they were always reinforcing love and inspiration and creativity around me. And they were the kind of people that understood Black Sabbath's Allman Brothers, Elvis Presley, Willie Nelson, Morbid Angel, and Gordon Lightfoot. All good music. There's, and then they'd say, you're Gideon, man, you're you, just be you. And I would be like, well, right on, thanks. And so I would show them the same. And I was surrounded by so much love and encouragement that I will always treasure them. And so those people like that came along. And the third is two of my brothers appeared, which were my spiritual brother, Boo Duckworth, Otis Hughes. And Animal Back had broken up, so they came in and said, we're going to be your band. Otis is a brilliant songwriter, one of the best bass players I've ever seen, and a brilliant man. And so Otis Hughes came in and says, we're going to be your surrogate band. He had this weird philosophy like surrogate mother, or like someone who would be a birth mother and then give their baby to another family. And so he says, we are your surrogate band. And I said, I shall accept surrogate band. And so it's like he came in and Boo didn't want to play anymore because he was like me at the time. He was so burned out, and he'd had some incredible experiences, but he also had some that broke his heart in life and in music business. And Boo didn't want to play anymore. But he said, I'll record, let's go jam. And so we did some practices, and it went really great. It was very explosive, really fast. And we had Keith on lead guitar for that time. So I played rhythm and sang, and I showed him my songs. SG for $150. It had a big crack in the neck, but it still played. And I had a quarter, and I was playing like a ZZ Top with the quarter on 4 strings. I didn't have the top 2 strings, and I wrote all these songs with the tune down on I wrote 4 songs on this Gibson SG with a little Marshall. It was a practice Marshall my friend Gail had given me. He said, here, you can have this. And so fate just started falling into place for saying it's okay to play music again. I was surrounded by encouragement, and then the right musicians who said I'd like to be in a band like that. Now, there was a guy in England back in the 80s. He was Zodiac Mind Warp. Zodiac Mind Warp was like the space biker, outer space biker kind of British comic book biker guy. Not a lot of people know about Zodiac, but he had a big song called Prime Mover. So when I got together with Otis and Boo, they were like, you're Zodiac Mind Warp. And I said, no, it's like, yeah, but Zodiac's cool, you know who he was. So it was like, we all believed Zodiac was like this real, like he was in outer space somewhere, and he came down occasionally to play rock and roll. The image was just that his trip was like a guy riding a Harley across over Jupiter, and then he would land on Earth and play rock and roll. It was like fun. And then one thing about those guys too is they worship Sabbath. They loved Blue Oyster Cult. And Boo used to pick up the phone and say, Blue Oyster Cult hotline, don't fear the Reaper. Can I help you? We'd joke about it. They loved Blue Oyster Cult. And Otis and Boo and Rich Paris, who was my roommate at one time and brilliant friend that played in Animal Bag and jammed with me a little bit, they all worship the 60s, 70s rock, from Jethro Tull to The Doors to Sabbath to Arthur Brown, Crazy World of Arthur Brown, and they understood all of that, and so they could see a Skynyrd, Sabbath, Almonds, Elvis, whatever marriage of psychedelic bluesy rock. So when I came in and said, okay, here's what I got, and I'm riffing out like Sabbath, and I showed them the first 4 songs, it exploded. Boo was such a powerful drummer. Nobody played drums like that guy. And one of the best friends I ever had. Otis still one of my best friends. And so we started jamming, and I got a job and said at a recording studio working for free. I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to make it the best it can be. The place in town that the best at the time was Reflection Studio. I couldn't afford to go in there. And Reflection was where REM had been, and COC, and oh man, huge bands. But then underground band, metal bands like, I think some guys from Korn came in there, but like Confessor, they're doing their stuff there. And I had heard the stuff from Reflections by Animal Baggin' by the God's Water that sounded just amazing. Then the classic records that had been in and out that were pretty huge. Bill Simzek was in there with Joe Walsh one day for a while and bought me a pizza, and me and my friends, and he came over and talked to us. You know, he produced Hotel California, I think. So it was like we were around us some big stuff. Then I'd been in Reflections, but I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. So I went in one day and I said, you know, the lady that ran it was a very kind woman. You hiring anybody? And she said, well, you're a big guy, you know, I don't really need an engineer or anything like that. And that's good, because I didn't have any kind of engineer skills. And she's like, you could move mixing boards and just drive the van and be the grunt worker. And I said, right on. I said, here's the deal. I said, I really want to make a record in here, but you know, I wonder if I could work like as a, you know, exchange for recording time. And she said, no problem. So they were very kind and loving about it. And so I became Mr. Grunt Worker, and I would do catered food and move tapes around and drive a van in and out of town and deliver stuff from the recording studio, like big reel-to-reel tapes, or, you know, small little things for an artist. There was one artist I'm not going to name, but he was pretty big in the R&B thing, and he had me put a reel-to-reel tapes of some stuff he wanted with him or for him to take on an airplane. Sometimes it was something very small, like, you know, I want to take this tape with me, or I want my guitar that I left at home, and then I would be the guy that booked over and got it and brought it back to him or whatever. So I did all that, and it was fun and interesting, and I learned so much by being around these guys. Then I started to learn more about production techniques by watching them make these brilliant records. When I'm the guy over with the pizza and the drink, oh, would you like anything else, sir? And what I'm doing is absorbing everything I can and meeting a lot of people. So I got my free 4 days, and I got Boo and Otis, and I got Keith to play lead guitar. And we had practiced in my friend Jody's basement. Jody had had recorded a lot of great bands around North Carolina in his basement. His basement was like the garden of a lot of bands from that time period. So we jammed in Jody's basement and then said, okay, it's time. So we bust over to Reflection, and we did the first demo, which was going to be a 2-song cassette. It was Love Breaker and Hollow in Your Soul. Then I said, okay, we're going to do 2 more. So we did Karma Violation King and Wishing Well. And it was explosive. I mean, it sounded so huge coming out of these speakers. The engineer is Tracy Schroeder, who had done COC and Korn, a guy from Korn, I think, a solo thing. And he had done a lot of these metal bands where he was like the guy. There were a few other people, and forgive me, I don't remember their names, but who came in and out as an engineer, assistant engineer. And then Dave Harris, I think, mastered the material, did some editing and mastering. And over in the big section was Mark Williams. Mark Williams, very well-respected producer, and he had done like Hootie and the Blowfish and all these guys, and was just kicking ass. Their records were huge, and Mark didn't work on it, but he was always supportive to me. So he would come over and, Gideon, you're doing good, you know, Gideon, you're doing good, you know. And it was cool to hear that from everybody. So we got in there, we made the first 4-song EP. It was the names were up in the air. I came up with a lot of names. One of them was Cosmic Motor Company. And right at that time, a lot of the names that people were coming up were Motor Company and blah, blah, blah Motor Company. And there were so many of them that we quit doing that. We said no. So I had a couple others. One was audio witchcraft, and I liked that because of magic sound, the idea of creating magic from sound from the speaker. And with the original cassette demo has written on it, Gideon Smith and Audio Witchcraft. Somebody got a hold of that in New Orleans, and there was a little printed magazine paper with a little review of it. And I still have that. That was the first write-up. So then we were talking about the names and going through things, and Otis came up with the Dixie Damned. I did not come up with that. And I liked it. We all liked it because it was dark and bluesy. To us, it just meant Southern bluesy, like the marriage of Robert Johnson and Blue Cheer or something. It was like loud and heavy, but bluesy. And so we liked it. And at the time, we just looked at it like, we were creating this weird marriage of slide guitar and doom metal riffs or whatever that most people, nobody was really doing that at the time. And it's tuning down riffs really, really deep like a cello, and then singing like Elvis on top of it and having slide guitar was a bizarre mix. So Otis came up with Dixie Damned, and we wanted a really long, crazy name, and like Crazy World of Arthur Brown. I was talking about Zodiac, to me, it was like Zodiac, Mind Warp, and the Love Reaction. Everybody had a long name, and so we said we're going to come up with a really long name that would be something, like a catchy phrase. So it became, and some people told me just call it Gideon, and I kind of shied away from that. In the years since, I think there's a couple of bands that have done that, but due to whatever. But we came up with Gideon Smith and the Dixie Damned, and it couldn't have been more out of style. But we made this demo, and something really bizarre happened. Bands always chase trends. A lot of younger bands, they chase a trend. They get in mind what they want something because they see it in the media, they see it in a big magazine, a press or whatever, or they go see a band, and if a band's a certain style, they play a certain way, they dress a certain way, they have a certain kind of lyrics, and they want to be just like that. What a lot of younger musicians don't know or they don't see is if they're chasing a trend, which I don't believe in. I believe in you got to make a trend, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But if you're chasing a trend of what's popular right now that you're seeing on TV, you're seeing in your favorite magazine or webzine now, or on stage or whatever, you're 5 years too late. Those guys built that stuff when it wasn't cool, and then the imitator bands came along, and maybe some of them got kind of popular. But if you're chasing something like that, and you say, okay, this is what we got to be. We got to dress like this, act like this, sing like this, talk like this, whatever. You've missed the boat by several years. And so what I had experienced earlier in my career, when people said you're stuck in the 60s or 70s, you're out of style, the way you sing, look, play guitar, whatever, I wasn't fitting in the trend of that particular period. And like I said, that wasn't personal. I think as much business is business with cats like that. But with what we can't, when the three of us, and it was me and Boo and Otis, and in my trip of what I did, just being true to myself, but they encouraged and watered the garden of what I already was by embellishing it. They propped me up, and it's like they were running out with the boat too, and then we were all going to jump on it. Is they said, just be you. So we did this strange marriage of Skinner and Sabbath, Elvis, biker rock, blues, psychedelia, metal, hard rock, maybe a few traces of outlaw country, so many things without planning it. We'll just say be true to yourself. So I was just being me. The trends at the time were very different. So this very bizarre and strange thing happened. We made this 4-song demo, and everything switched to what I was. All of a sudden, there's stoner rock. I never even heard of stoner rock. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't listen to any of those bands. I never heard of them. I mean, I'd heard of some of the names maybe, but I didn't follow them and say, okay, I'm going to start a stoner rock band, because I didn't even know what it was. And it turns out what stoner rock was that it was 70s and 60s retro. So all of a sudden, everything that I had been sort of socially undermined for became cool, became the trend. And so when the 4-song EP we did started passing around, everybody wanted to be a 70s retro band, a 60s retro band. Everybody wanted to be a stoner rock, or they wanted to be, within a year or two is everybody, it became a big deal. So if you look like a biker guy, or if you hillbilly or whatever with their deal, trippy, 70s guy, whatever, became what people wanted. And so everything that people say, you suck because you're like this, the same cats years later are going, you're the best because you're just like that. And so really, I watched the trend shift towards me and grab me. And so, pow, I get these write-ups and phone calls and everything of people going, this is the real thing. This guy's the real thing. You are the real thing. And I always tell people, stand your ground. Stay yourself. Be yourself and hold your ground and make the trend. Make the scene. Don't join a scene. Don't sweat about a scene. Don't even follow a trend. Hold up and be yourself. Blend your influences. Whereas if you just try to be one thing or like a number in a scene, that's all you are. The people that really make an impact, they stand alone. Just be yourself and follow your heart. Don't look on the outside, look on the inside, create your music. So I got my girlfriend to take a picture of me up against the wall. I made, I think, 1,000 CDs, bulk, and it was like $500. I made the covers of Kinko's and folded them on my lunch hour around these CDs over and over at work. And so the chicks I worked with were coming in and I was folding them and putting them in a grocery bag. And so then I mailed them all over the world. At night I would sit and up all night and watch horror movies. And my girlfriend at the time would fall asleep on the couch and we're watching Night of the Living Dead or something. And I'm sitting there packing up promo kits, press kits, and for padded mailers. And she'd wake up and we'd put on another one and she'd say, you're still doing that shit? And by the next morning I had like 100 done. And I would do that every day. So I started mailing them all over the world. Sticker, CD, whatever, what write-ups I had and everything. And Boo would help me. He was there and he would do it too. Or, and all kind, we would, we held up and said, we're going to shoot arrows everywhere and we're gonna push really hard. So I mailed one to Italy. To a guy who was a stoner rock writer. I don't know where I got that guy's info, but I hit so many targets that I really can't even remember where I got the info on every one. And this was when you weren't emailing songs to people. Like I said, it was just on the edge of pre-internet era. So with old school mail like that, we were mailing cassette tapes or the CDs all over the world. This guy in Italy gets one, and he writes me and says, I really like it, and I think you're really great. And I said, I appreciate that, brother. And he's like, you remind me of Five Horse Johnson. And Five Horse Johnson is a blues rock band. They're awesome, and they're from Ohio. It's signed to Small Stone Records in Detroit. So you should send one to Small Stone. And so I said, okay, cool. So I mailed one to Small Stone. Then I don't know how much time went by. It might have been a couple of weeks or months. And we had gathered a lot of these reviews. The reviews all said, Gideon Smith and the Dixie Dams are the real thing. These guys are like this. This guy is this underground icon. This guy's this legendary dude. And this is what he plays. This is what he does. And, and so with everybody out there pursuing what had become cool, retro 60s, 70s rock, that I got this mad praise for everything that I was getting kicked for. And so I was like, I kind of like this better. So then, and Boo loved it, Otis was like, that's cool. So then I got a call from Small Stone Records, the head of Small Stone Records, named Scott. Scott is the man. He is a stand-up dude and like a corner man of a boxer. And I think Scott, my gratitude for him is boundless, and all he's done for my music, and he's my friend. But as far as with his label, he always really believed in me. So he really has gone to town for me for so long. So '99, Scott calls me in my house and says, "Hey, this is Scott from Small Stone, and I want to sign your band." And so I said, "Sure," and he says, "Do you have, a lot more songs?" And I said, "Yeah, I got tons and tons of songs." I didn't. We had 4 songs. And I was playing a guitar with 4 strings on it, leaning against a little practice amp. And I said, "Yeah, oh yeah, I got tons of songs, man." It was kind of funny. So then Scott said, "Well, so we had a couple talk about it." But he said, "If this are just your initial ideas, if this is what you have, I really want to see what you're going to do." And I said, "Yeah, send me the paperwork." And I really appreciate that. So, pal, I get a record contract in the mail. So I called Boo. I called everybody, and it was like the dream that you still had. I guess people have now, but you had back then, before the internet was the giant world tool of, I mail it something to a record company, and then I get a call going, "You're awesome. I want to sign your band." And then, pal, I get a contract in the mail. It was like the dream of your high school rock and roll dream. So it was amazing. I'll never forget. So the guy Gail, who was my friend, and he was roommates with my good friend Tom. I ran over to his apartment. We lived in the same apartment complex, and I started telling him, "Man, I got a fucking record deal." And Gail is a big man, and he's colossal. I mean, he's pro wrestler big. So he started to jump up and down in his house in the living room, and he was so excited, and I was so excited, and it was like we were like these 2 hyper little kids thinking that, like, record deal, like, it was like we were like, I don't know, Wayne's World or whatever. So we're flipping the hell out. So I called Boo. Boo couldn't believe it. He was so excited because he had given up on playing, but he liked playing with me, and he sat in with a few other people, but he had given up on all of that. So basically, Boo and I jumped on him even harder and rebuilt the band. So I recruited other friends we had at the time. The guys that sat in were good friends, and Dixie lineup kind of mutated, but some really great people came in, and so we did the first album, which was Southern Gentleman, and we recorded it in Indian Trail, actually in Charlotte, and at this studio called the Sound Farm. This was out in a big wheat field, and the pictures of us back then, of us standing in the wheat field, looked like Sabbath, or like, a blind melon in the wheat field or whatever. So we did the first album. Then it was mixed and produced and everything in Detroit, which was Smallstone was based by Al Sutton, and a great dude, and he had done big bands. He was working with a lot of really cool guys and a lot of cool stuff. It's really honored to get to work with him. So they took those initial tapes and made them high octane, and we did Southern Gentleman album, which came out around, I think, 2000. So then we went to New York and did an album release party. This was me, Jose, Brad, Boo, and Mike. And we went up there, and we played at the Continental Club. And one of the coolest things was the Guns N' Roses had played there. Iggy Pop was playing there a few days later. So many huge bands that we knew, and it was this small stage, small place. But the coolest thing is, like, damn, we're having an album release party at the Continental, and it was whatever. So it was one of those New York moments where, we played with a lot of people. We had done an Aerosmith tribute album too, right at the same time. So that's kind of what, like, we played Chip Away at the Stone or whatever at that show, and there were some really cool bands on that bill. And Scott from Small Stone was there, and he and I talked. Such a cool guy, and we watched some bands and we played. We had a real New York moment where we saw Joey Ramone walk by on the sidewalk. And Joey Ramone walked by real slow and creepy, like a ghost. And he was kind of like you always saw Joey Ramone, black leather jacket and gloves and glasses. And Jose and I were inside the Continental Club, and we looked over and we're like, guys, Joey Ramone. And we look out the window and we see him walk by. And this little pack of punk rock kids were following him, like, as he ghosted by the sidewalk. So we went booking out on the sidewalk, and pow, way down the street, he's gone, like he was some kind of ghost in a New York moment. So Jose goes back inside, I'm back on the sidewalk, and I see Kevin Bacon and Kyra Sedgwick, and I talked to them for like a minute, and all this weird New York stuff was happening like that, where everything was just passing by real fast, coming in and out. So we played, and it was such a cool memory, and that's something I felt that no one could ever really take away from me, was that we went from this cassette demo to CD to deal to making an album to working with this massively accomplished producer who also went on to do more stuff with and we did that. So we played that show. That was so much fun and really amazing, cool thing. We played up and down when we could, East Coast at that time, which was 2000. We played with Raging Slab. Always loved those guys. They were really cool. And Greg and Elise, really cool people. Then we played, one of the last shows we played before Boo died was a bike week at Myrtle Beach. And we went down there, and it rained like crazy, and we were going to play with Joan Jett. I was really excited about that because I had met her years previously doing some roadie type work, and she was such a cool lady, such a extremely charming and beautiful, kind woman, and rock champion, one of the all-time greats. And you talk to her, and she could not have been a more kind, chilled out person. I really enjoyed talking to her, and so I was really excited we were going to play with her all these years later. So we didn't end up getting to play together. I think that she canceled or went to the next city or whatever due to the rain. So the people there said, will you please stay and play, because there's people all over the place, and everybody went home. And so I said, sure, we'll play. I don't know what happened to Joan Jett. I never have seen her again. So she might have, maybe the event was rained out, whatever. I hope I see her again one day. She was a class act, an incredible musician. And I'll never forget meeting Joan Jett and having her be so kind to me. So we stayed at the beach show and played inside on the floor in this place, and it was packed, and everybody went crazy, and there were girls dancing and people going crazy, and so people were wanting us to sign stuff and take pictures, and they made it this really big deal. But it's probably because you had this huge crowd of wild partying people and no band, and so we ended up playing, and pow, everybody went berserk. It was so much fun. One of the most fun performances that I ever had, getting with Dixie Dam Style. So I remember there was family members, like Jose's wife was there, and she was happy and dancing, and Mike's sisters were both there, and they were up on these rafters jumping around, and I remember looking up and seeing them and everything. And it was right before Boo died, so it was really, I felt like it was such a fantastic experience to have such a great show right before Boo was to leave us for Valhalla or Mount Olympus, because we got to have a couple of rock star moments, which, say whatever you want, everybody loves that stuff. We weren't trying to not enjoy the success we worked so hard for.
Understands me. Those that do soon run away. It ain't no good getting too close to someone. It ain't no good getting too close to you. Well, the outlaw, even I don't understand me. Well, the outlaw ain't fit to judge me. Don't need to explain myself, especially to the likes chasing you. Bad blood in my veins makes me crazy. A good heart makes me try so hard. We'll be outlaw, even I don't understand me. We'll be outlaw, ain't fit to judge me.
That show, and we're signing stuff for people and taking pictures, and women were coming up to me, "Oh my God, you're Gideon Smith," and it was really crazy because I was like, "You don't know who I am?" So I'd say like, I'd be like, "Yeah, how you doing, sister? How you doing? Nice to meet you," And then we had a wonderful, just amazing night. And so we went back and stayed at this place, and me and Booth stayed up all night, and we talked and talked and talked, and it might have been a couple weeks later in early June that Boo died. Boo had sleep apnea. I did not know. If I had known, I would have made him wear the mask, the CPAP mask. I would have been on top of it. At the time, Boo was a little heavier. He's probably only a little bit bigger than I am now. But he was a little heavier, and he would eat a lot and drink a lot of beer and everything. And so it was really this kind of thing where you were used to him being that way. It never affected his playing, and one of the greatest drummers in the world. It never affected his mentality of being this spiritual, awesome guy. I always tell people, everybody that knew Boo loved Boo. He was such a big-hearted guy with a sweet, big heart. And he was also very, very tough. And so Boo was not sweet and mellow and a pushover. He was really the kind of guy who would do anything for an animal, help a child, help a friend, family member, and if he saw something in the wrong, he would jump on somebody. And so with Boo, he was really like, he had each side of it. You could probably say that about a lot of the guys who have come in and out of my band, with beautiful heart and also hard as nails. And so with Boo, if you knew Boo and you didn't like him, there was something wrong with you. And so everybody loved Boo because Boo was just like this, he had such a huge heart, and he was such a sweet, beautiful man, in addition to being very strong. I never saw him be a dick or yell at anybody, but he was one of those people that was so quietly strong that nobody messed with him. And at the same time, too, was a beautiful person. And so Boo ate a big dinner, drank a lot of beer, I guess, did his usual thing, and I wasn't there. And I saw him or talked to him every day at the time, and was used to him calling me through in and out of the day and everything else. So because it's been so many years, it's easier to go across. But I think it took me many years to come to terms with Boo passing away. So Boo had sleep apnea, and he went to sleep on the couch, and in his apartment, and he did not wake up. And so I got a call from this girl who's a mutual friend the next day, and she said, Gid, I heard something happened to Boo. So I busted over to his apartment, and there was nobody around, and I knocked on the door, and his neighbor came out. His neighbor was a friendly guy, and he came over and he hugged me and he started to cry. And so I said, well, what's going on? And he said, well, they took Boo out in the night in an ambulance. And I said, or was in the morning, whatever. I mean, time has blurred the details and grief. So Boo choked to death in his sleep, but he did not, in my mind, suffer any pain. And I asked the guy, I said, was the sheet down or over his head? And I was trying to get the story out of him. And he said the sheet was over his head. And he started to cry. So then Boo, he left us to join the gods in Valhalla or Mount Olympus or Summerland or wherever he needed to go. And so when I got home, I still refused to believe it. So I was calling all over the place, and I went through all these things, and I was going through all these situations. Oh, it's okay, I'm going to find him somewhere. And I was just in, shock of the news, but I still refused to believe it. So finally, it was true. And I talked to, everybody I could. So I walked over to the wall, and I put my hands up on the wall in my apartment, and I pressed on them and held on them for the longest time. And it's exercise that people do, isometric stuff like that, and I pressed my hands up on the wall, and I finally said, okay, it's all right. And Boo, it was just time for him to go. So then I was finally able to cry. I do not cry all the time. I a couple of times a year back then maybe I would cry. So finally I was able to cry because I was able to let out that he was gone, and I did not want him to leave. He was like, one of my best friends I ever had. He was my anchor. He was my brother. And we had worked so hard and gotten to this point, and it was so rewarding to see him so happy. And he believed in me and picked me up. Come on, we got to ready. We're going to do this. We were all so into it. And so it was like this, we got rumbled in a way that was heartbreaking. And band or no band, I lost my friend. And, I'd have gone down to hell and pulled him back out if I'd have been able to. But, that's not where he went. So the way that I rationalized it was that Boo had a dream. And he had a really beautiful dream. And he liked it so much that he decided to stay there. And that's the way I've always held on to it. And so I feel like Boo was happy, thrilled about his new band, and had a big dinner, went to sleep on his couch, had a very lovely dream, because Boo had these big psychedelic dreams he would talk about, and he liked it so much he said, you know what, the door opened and said, you can stay here if you want to stay here, or you can go home. And I think in my mind, and it's the way I reconcile with it, was that Boo said, I'm peaceful, I think I'll stay. And to me, I probably would have made the same choice at different times in my life. Maybe I would now. But when I saw, when I went through the circumstances, I feel like Boo just stepped into that open door. And it's not that he wanted to leave us or his family or his loved ones. There was a woman he loved very, very much, more than the earth, and at the time, and he would have done anything for her. And when I don't think he wanted to leave us, I think that what he wanted to do was he just wanted to be peaceful and happy. And he had been through a lot. And so when that door opened, Boo said, this is beautiful, and I'm going here, and off he went. And so this was 2002 in the summer. Otis calls it Boo-thousand 2. And so every year since when the anniversary comes around, Otis will come find me and say it's Boo 1003, it's Boo 1004, and we make it a happy thing. So we had a big outdoor celebration in his memory called the Boo Ha Ha, and I sang with the Animal Bag guys because Luke couldn't make it, and so I got to sing with Rich Paris and Otis, Jeff Hale from God's Water, and some other guests, and we did Animal Bag songs and some things, and we had a lot of fun. And so we made it kind of like a New Orleans thing, or a what I know of Irish funeral, which is they make a celebration. And so we had a big giant outdoor hippie party for Boo, and played, all these bands played. And so I said, you know what, I finally made it, did what I wanted to do, and achieved that goal of getting to music. Now I've lost one of my best friends I ever had, and I still had some really good friends. They know who they are. Much respect to all you guys, but when I lost Boo, I didn't know what to do, and I said, I'm just going to quit because, you know, hey, we got to do it. And it was kind of like we got our pass to our rock and roll Disneyland. And then when Boo died, I said, let's just throw some roses on it and say it was a beautiful chapter and heartbreaking, and also a beautiful thing that we got to have so much fun, and we got to rock star out for, you know, however amount of time that we got to play. Underground metal or mainstream, I don't care what people talk about it. You know, we got to do some cool stuff, and we loved it, and we had a lot of beauty and fun with it. And when everybody said, and it wasn't just me, everybody said, this guy sucks, he's out of style, this guy's not cool, stay, you know, don't deal with that guy, he's crazy, and our friend says it's not okay to like him, or what the fuck ever those clowns do, is I had Boo, I had Otis, I jammed with these other guys, and my friends came in, like I mentioned earlier, who, you know, to be part of it, and we proved everybody wrong by forcing the trend back to us. And all of a sudden, we were cool for everything they said we weren't cool for. And so at the center, I was like this rock and roll shaman, and I lost one of my really solid guys. As a leader, I lost my colleague, but also I had lost like one of my great fellow, you know, guys in my organization. So I was going to quit, and I said, you know, I'm proud of it, you know, we got to do it. And there was a woman there named Annie who was a manager for Boo's older band. And Annie had said, you cannot quit. You will not quit. And she said, Boo would be ashamed of you if you quit. You will not quit. And I was not determined to quit as much as the initial loss of your friend and your brother figure, and, you know, your band got destroyed from losing your member. I'm not one of those people, if somebody in a band, something like that happens, that you drink one beer and act like they were never your friend. I mean, this guy was, you know, was my brother in my life, so I was just like, you know, we got to do it, and we loved it, and without Boo, whatever. But Annie said, Boo would be ashamed if you quit. You will not stop. You worked so hard to get to this place, and you're going to keep doing what you're doing. And I thank the gods that she did that. And then by August, we were playing again. We did it too fast, but we still did it. So we got my good friend Mark Binion played drums. My good friend Jeff Hale played drums. And we got into new guys. So I revolved around lineups, kept playing, kept recording. And there was a lot of stumbles up and down. But the interest never really died. And Smallstone never gave up on me. They didn't drop me. And they didn't, when Boo died, they didn't write me off. He always was in my corner. Around '04, I got hit with some health problems. And I did not know it, but I started to get sick. I had lung issues, lung disease. And at the time, I didn't know it. Took some time to diagnose it and get all that together, but I had autoimmune disease. I have autoimmune disease. So I had arthritis. Arthritis came up, and a lot of pain, a long time, several years of health battle, and still constantly keeping the music alive. And amongst all that, sure, you go through a lot of ups and downs alone by yourself. I had my beloved family, and you know, friends, band members, girlfriend, whoever that was there. I treasure that, and who especially April. I always call April my twin sister from another father, same father, different mother. That's what I say. But April, who is my dear friend and my evil twin sister, would say, "You're gonna play music again. You can do it." And it's not like I was saying, "No, it's all over," but it helped to have somebody there to say, "You're gonna get through it. It's gonna be okay." And so I go through all this stuff, and I was going through a long health drag. And so people quit that played with me to go play in other bands. I don't really blame them because we weren't doing anything, and it was a long down period that was rough. Through a long gray area, by I believe it was 07, 08. Finally, I was back with the second album. Long pause between them, but Interested never died, and people were always saying, like our video was on YouTube as a 80s rock band or something. It was crazy. We weren't an 80s rock band, really. We were a 90s rock band, but people some people had kind of lumped it in with that era in a weird way, probably from Animal Bag. But then the interest hadn't died, and the press kept going, and people was still, I want to see Gideon play, I want to hear new music. The label was still in my corner. So we did a lot of demos. We did the second album, which was South Side of the Moon. South Side of the Moon was a play on Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. And so the cover of the album is a moon with pyramids on it and stuff. And so we did South Side of the Moon album, and that was me and like 25 different musicians. I can't name them all, but the Mighty Phil from Big Chief and Five Horse Johnson, Eric Hogemeyer, so many people, so many great people joining on South Side. And so once again in Detroit from Rust Belt, and we made South Side. South Side did great. Came back out and just cleaned house. And so then South Side was more psychedelic, less swampy, but there was a song Black Cat Road that was on Sons of Anarchy, and Way of the Outlaw was on Dog the Bounty Hunter and stuff like that. One of the greatest things that happened for me was that we got on Sopranos. Dragging the River was on the Sopranos episode. So my songs were getting all over TV and a little bit of film and some greatest programs, Sopranos. And then when Sons of Anarchy came out, a lot of people that were hip to it were psyched. They liked the TV show, or they got introduced to me through those shows or whatever. And so it helped tremendously. And I played when I could. I played a lot of shows. And then after a while, lineups break up and ups and downs. And every time I didn't play that much. And I was fighting this health stuff to where I was not going to go out and tour. A lot of things going on. So went through some shakeups up and down. And did a couple of EPs, a lot of compilation CDs. And then in 2010, there was a tribute CD to my music. Bands had been covering my songs all over the world. So there was something like 17, 18, 20 bands had covered my songs in all these crazy styles. And it was like thrash metal, ska, punk, hardcore, hillbilly country, disco, techno. This CD full of all these covers. And I was so humbly honored and amazed. The tribute CD had this black Pegasus jumping out of a pentagram out of the ground, and this beautiful outer space and everything. And it was a tribute to Gideon Smith, and it was all these bands doing my songs. When I first heard it, I had to go sit on the floor. I was so amazed and just like honored, and also just so humbly honored that my music had affected people all over the world like that. And I continued to receive such positive feedback that kept going. I was never going to give up. I was just dealing with other parts of life at the same time as keeping my music alive in some of the hardest or happiest times in my life. So fighting autoimmune disease, I'm a lung disease survivor. I had a long battle, but my music kept going, and I played one where I could. So then the tribute CD came out. That was crazy and amazing and honor. And I'd been on so many of them. I mean, I covered all these big bands that I loved. I never thought there would be one about me. That's a dream. And so when it came out and there's bands around the world, a different style, doing your songs, what can you say but just be completely honored and be so thankful that you enriched someone's life that way, that they sat down and learned your song and recorded and sent it to you. The guy who did the artwork was from Morbid Angel. A lot of some of that stuff was just crazy. Small world and an honor. So then got to work, had some up and downs, and then I did the 30 Weight album. 30 Weight, again on Small Stone, was a little darker. 30 Weight album, a little bit more gothic rock sounding, but still very bluesy, very heavy, but darker in a sense, or not heavy like metal, but big. But in a sense, 30 Weight was like a nighttime album. It is a desert nighttime passionate album. Sometimes when it's dark, it's not necessarily mean depressing, because I'm not going to play depressing music. There's a time and place for sad songs. I've written plenty of them and I will sing them, but I don't glorify depression. I think that you should always focus on the positive. And so with when I say darker, it was more about the thrill of the night that would happen between sunset and morning, which is people making love, playing music, driving their car, they're running, gunning their car, their bike down the highway, whatever, living life and meeting people, experiences, passion, whatever, looking up at the stars in the night. And so it was really all about the passion and thrill of that in that sense. When I say gothic rock, I love Sisters of Mercy and the British gothic rock bands, Joy Division, whatever, but I looked at the great pioneers of gothic rock were the Doors. American gothic rock was invented by the Doors and Jim Morrison. That dark, carnivalesque organ, very mysterious music. And so when I did 30 Weight, it was almost like gothic, bluesy, psychedelic, desert rock, muscle car, biker rock, whatever you wanted to call it. And the song Ride With Me was on Dog the Bounty Hunter, different TV shows. Very rewarding experience. So 30 Weight came out in 2011, and this was how many years ago? 4 or 5 years ago now that it came out, and in 10 or 11 it came out. Then Palette Clean House. So over the period of time, it got a lot of good critical acclaim, which I'm so thankful for really all this time. So from the first EP, they say Your Real Thing, and this is this bluesy Southern rock. Then I do Southern Gentleman, South Side of the Moon, 30 Weight, and there are people who never heard of it. I'm not surprised. There's people who say it's their favorite albums, and I'm honored. There are people that call them classics or best of the year or whatever, and I'm honored. Tribute album, people covering or inspired my stuff. I'm honored. It's really like a long dream, even the hard parts. So 30 Weight came out and did killer and got a lot of acclaim, and I think possibly it was the most successful of those 3 full lengths. And then played some shows, kept recording and doing my thing. I wrote a book in 06 or 07, which was about positive thinking and esoteric philosophy, martial arts, a little bit about rock band life, but it wasn't a rock band book. I had noticed Bob from his acting work and really wanted to meet him and talk to him. I related to Bob just by his background initially, having not even talked to him yet. I know he had been on Banshee television show, and Bob's understanding of music as well would be similar to a lot of the things that I love. And so when I talked to him, I said, what's this guy going to be like? Probably he thought, well, the same about me. So we talked and we hit it off right away, very instantly, had so much in common. And so even the initial few talks with Bob were very long, just talking about life and music, acting, spirituality, so many interesting things, martial arts, so many things from wide spectrum you don't normally have in a rock and roll or a film conversation. And we hit it off from those initial talks to where I was really excited to talk to him. And I remember saying, even if we don't work together, I'm really psyched to meet a friend like you and to get to speak. And so it's a strain for me to say how long it might have been, but we had some really good talks, something really related, had a lot in common. And then we met and had dinner. And most people that know me privately know that I pretty much only eat Asian food. I always eat Asian food all the time. Bob says, okay, well, this is one of my favorite places. So we go meet an Asian restaurant, and we had dinner. And as soon as I walked up, I'm like, I could see it coming off him, like, like this energy, like a Jedi, this energy and his aura. And I said, this man is, he's like like a beacon, And I came up to Bob and said, well, yeah, nice to meet you too, And so we went and sat and talked for a very long time that night. And I knew that it was a really key and a really cool event in my life to make this kind of a rare friend.
I like what you said, Gid, too, about the right people, the right thing at the right time, because that, I think the honesty of the work that we do, whether it's music, whether it's acting, there really is no line in the sand. It's one and the same. And it's not so much who we want to be, it's who we are. We always need to be true to ourselves. To thine own self be true.
Because creative people need to create, and they need to keep doing the thing. And whether you're a hard-ass backwoods dude in the swamp and you're creative as a fool, or you're an art student at the best Ivy League university and creativity runs your mind, you're the exact same. And so what you're doing is you have that gift and that calling. With me, however people want to define it or see it, I had to keep my creativity going because it was there and it needed to come out. Creativity and music are like water and air and sunlight. They're essential to life. And I'm a very spiritual guy. I studied many world religions, put a lot into it. I spent time in Japan, Indonesia, and I've been around and seen a lot of things to where I say that life is magical and beautiful. I was raised to believe in magic and beauty, and I always will. And it's my job to contribute that to the world. And I was also raised to never give up, always strive to be the best, always strive to work very, very hard. I'm a triple Leo astrologically in the Western world, so my drive never really ends. So even in the hardest time, it was like drive. And I just kept pushing. But also, it's working very hard and working very smart. So I wake up in 14 or 15 and people call you a legend in your field or iconic or whatever. Who's gonna say no? Anyone who spends any time in art or field, enough time, and you give it your life, you bleed it out, you sing from your heart, you go through so many ups and downs, you have your heart so broken you don't want to live anymore, you go through the hardest times and the beautiful victories, which could not be sweeter. You drink from this silver cup, and you live life that, then you wake up one day and you're this eccentric character that's just following his heart and being what you need to be. And people say, that dude, he's a legend. I'm honored. I'm humble. I consider it a humble honor. And I don't take it too seriously. I just look at it and say, thank you, brother, or thank you, sister. And I'm honored that I do anything to enrich your life. And to me, it's like the gods gave me this torch and I hold it. Then I hand it to you and light yours, and then I take it back, the next person on. All you're doing is spreading positive energy. And so my whole message in anything I've done is triumph over adversity. I did in my early days have a chip on my shoulder. where I said, everybody that said I can't do it, I'm going to prove you wrong, and I'm going to make you eat it. And then the people who ever tried, sorry you had to eat it. And then the people who said that I believe in you and love you, then I'll believe in loving you 3 times harder. And so what I do is I spend my life picking people up. Now, this far, and thank the God's people pick me up, but far down the line now, where I'm at, I say, I'm thankful that people love what I do, and there's always more to come. More music, more magic. Music and magic are only 2 letters different, and music is essential to life. And so, with my trip, it's been filled with love, beauty, passion, fire, tragedy, heartbreak, health problems, death, rebirth, so many things. But at the heart of it all, the great love of music and art. So my final statement really in doing it is believe in yourself, be badass, make the world recognize it. Take your stuff out there, Invictus Unconquered, and give it everything you have. And because the only way you're ever going to be able to live with yourself is if you give it everything you have. You lay it all down and work everything you got. And then also, what you're doing is you're helping make the world a better place, even if it's just within the space of the song. And so when I hear from people around the world that know my name or love what I do, I'm honored. So really, rock and roll, or music in whatever form, from beautiful to heavy to rockin' to country, it's all from the soul, and it's part of my obligation to give it. And I'm honored that people out there care and love what I do. So, all this stuff that's built up around music, business, and trends, and then cliques and social scenes, sayonara, man, I don't need you, whatever, it's like I'm going to do what I needed to do. And then the people that love me, I love every one of you back. I love you more than you love me. And I give it all, and I'm honored that you care, and I'm far from done. So really, it's like Tolkien said, that the greatest adventures always lie ahead.